So in this video, I'll show you exactly how to fix inconsistent sales pipeline. A lot of clients of ours have dealt with this over the last 4 years. We've worked with multiple companies, helped them with lead generation and sales. We scaled a software company from $80 to $90 million in annual recurring revenue in just 10 months by doing exactly this. And we've helped many other companies with lead generation as well. So we've done this many times. And we've seen that inconsistency is usually just caused by one or both of the following. So either you don't have enough volume or leads going in the pipeline, so it feels very volatile because you just don't have a lot of people, or you just have inaccurate forecasting, which means the expected deals and the expected leads don't move to the next stage in the time that you predicted them to move there, which leads you to believe that you have inconsistent pipeline. And I'll show you the step-by-step fixes you can just copy and paste into your business or in your own sales process for each of these two things. And now I'll start with getting more leads because 99.9% of the time, this is the problem, all right? Forecasting is probably not your problem unless you're already getting tons of leads in your system and you don't know how to deal with them. But if that's not you, this is probably the problem, all right? And fundamentally, the only two things you can do to get more leads are either you scale an already existing system that you have, so something's already bringing you leads and you just need to do more of it, or you need to build a new channel, whether that be inbound or outbound, all right? And so let's cover both. So scaling an existing system, right? Scale at first principles is an increase in size, okay? So you have a system that is already working, you're getting some leads, and you just need to increase the size, the inputs that go through that, all right? And I've said system a lot because that's how you should think about this. A system, in simplified terms, has 4 parts to it. We have inputs, which are the raw materials going into your system. So this is things you actually do. It's dials, emails, send videos recorded, stuff like that. Then you have processes, which is the stuff you apply to those inputs to convert them into outputs. So those are like scripts, SOPs, like steps you follow, software you use, right? You do dials as an input and you use a script for that dial to get the outputs, which is what comes out at the other end. So meetings or positive replies for emailed or subscribers, right? If you're doing some sort of social media system or deals for your sales, right? And then the fourth part is KPIs, right? Every system has a feedback loop, which tells you where the system is performing well or not, okay? And you can view these things as like at a macro scale or a micro scale. For example, your business, a business as a whole, is converting humans into closed deals, into money. Okay, humans are the input, money is the output. That's a business. Every business is like that. And then if we go deeper, we have a cold calling system, which converts attention to meetings. Okay, or a cold email system, which converts emails sent into positive replies. And then you have a calling system for emails, which converts these positive replies into meetings and those meetings into closed deals. And you see there's a lot of subsystems in your entire business. Okay, and here's why this is important. What a lot of people do is just rapidly increase the inputs, okay? So they just do more dials or more emails without having a solid system. So they have no set processes, no SOPs, and every rep, every interaction produces a different KPI, and that is a problem, okay? So if you have 3 SDRs, right? One of them has a booking rate of 5%, one of them has 10%, one of them has 3% one month and 15% the next, right? And you have an account executive has a closing rate of 5%, and sometimes he has 10, sometimes 15, sometimes just 1. And you wonder why. Well, this happens because everyone says different things with different tonality and has a different approach to everything, okay? And the problem with that approach is that your system breaks at scale, okay? So as I said, scale at first principles is an increase in size. So you have a system and now you say, okay, let me just do more inputs. And then everything's gonna break, okay? Because the problem with this approach is that the problems scale with a factor of 2, okay? So a 2x in inputs, let's say instead of 100 dials, you do 200 dials, very simply. Means that any issue that wasn't fixed at a small scale will increase by 4x, not 2, okay? If you 3x the inputs, you get 6 times the problem. If you 20 times the inputs, you get 40 times the problem, okay? You see the issue. So how do you actually fix this? Because that's why you're watching this video. Well, you need to standardize everything. Pretty simple. So your goal is that everyone on the team, okay, says the same thing, the same way every time. And when you do that, instead of having 20 different processes, you have one, which also means if some KPI is too low, you now have enough data to actually evaluate what's wrong and what needs to be fixed. Because now everyone is doing something else. And then, oh, you have a 3% booking rate, you have a 10%. Now you have to fix two things at once. You can't scale like that. It's impossible. Or you can, but then everything will break and then you'll just have a bunch more work. You'll realize nothing's working and then you need to tone down the volume again to the old size to fix things, which is not the goal, right? And so your job is to write scripts for every person with tonality input into the script, all right? Tell them when to pause, tell them when to go up with their voice or down. You need to tell them these things because otherwise, again, everyone will do that at some point where they feel like doing it, which means you have different processes and you get the point. You need to write SOPs if you don't have them already. So SOPs are standard operating procedures, basically a step-by-step explanation on how to do a certain action, all right? How do you book a meeting when someone says yes on the phone? All right, you hung up. How do you book a meeting? What's the SOP for that? Once someone replies to an email, how do you reply back? When do you do it? How do you do it? What template do you use? Where can you find the templates? You have a step-by-step instruction for that as well, okay? Write playbooks for training, all right, that everyone reads consistently. And then enforce the rule to always stick to the script. You need, like, this is the most important part. You write the scripts, you write the SOPs, and then you make it part of your culture to make everyone stick to these things 100% of the time. If they don't, then you can't tolerate that behavior because that messes up everything. Okay? And so if you do this right, then you know that if you just 2x the dials or 2x the email sent, then you get 2 times the revenue. It's so simple. Like, actually do this. Spend time on systemizing everything because then scaling becomes so incredibly easy. It's so easy to just 2x the dials than to spend months and months trying to optimize words to increase your conversion rate. If you have a conversion rate, it doesn't need to be optimal. It just needs to be consistent because then you can use that to just make everything bigger without everything breaking. It's so easy, okay? But sometimes increasing the inputs isn't that easy, right? For some systems, you just might not be able to do that. And you might need to build a new channel to facilitate the goals that you have, right? Revenue-wise. And so building a channel, okay? There's 3 types of lead generation channels that you can build. You have inbound, which is you make systems that grab the attention and then strangers contact your business, all right? They see something and then they decide to contact you. We have outbound, which is you just contacting strangers, all right? And you have ads, which means you just put your business in front of strangers. So they take an action. It's a form of inbound, but it's, has some nuances. I'm going to focus on outbound because that's the fastest and most reliable way to get clients at a cheaper cost, okay? And so for outbound channels, you have 3. You have cold email, cold calling, and cold DMs. You can either just pick one or combine all, it doesn't matter. But the best combination that we found for CPL, so your cost per lead, to be the lowest, and the CAC, so customer acquisition cost, and we found this after sending over 10 million emails, doing 50,000 cold calls and more, is sending cold emails at massive scale and calling all the positive replies within 5 minutes. This is our winning outbound system. This is what we use. This is what we use for our clients. This is the best thing you can do for these 2 metrics, which are the most important one, because you want to spend the least to get a lead and a customer. That's the goal. Okay? And so if you build this right, you can get extremely cheap leads with a booking rate of over 80%, meaning everyone who, like, if you get 10 replies to your email, you can book 8 of them, at least. Okay? And you can send thousands and thousands of emails every single day to your entire total addressable market. This will just smash, okay? So here are the steps to build this system. First, you figure out the size of your total addressable market, or TAM, okay? The end goal of this should be a number. You need a number. This is your TAM. And then you divide that by 2, which is now what you get is how many emails you need to send per month. Because ideally, you want to reach your entire total addressable market every 30 to 60 days. I'm just going with 60. If you want to do even more, you can say, okay, I just want to reach them every month, then you just skip this step, all right? You don't divide by 2. Well, let's say you do this, so how many emails you need to send per month. Then you divide this number that you get by 12, which is now the amount of inboxes you need to buy. So inboxes are just specific emails, so firstname@domain.com. And then you divide the number of inboxes by 4, which is the amount of domains you need. And why do we do this? Well, you can only send 12 emails per day per inbox, because otherwise you will just land in spam. So we need to just buy a bunch of inboxes with a bunch of different domains that all sound similar to your main domain. All right. So if you have businessname.com, you can have domains like getbusinessname.com, gobusinessname.com, and stuff like that. Just similar, and they redirect to your main one. If someone searches them up, they come to your website. And so you buy a bunch of domains, and you get the number here. You buy this many domains, and then for each domain, you buy 4 inboxes per domain, and then you just send emails for each of these. Okay? And there's tools like this, like Smart Lead or Instantly or Email Bison. You can use all of these to just manage all of this. Okay, so you set up the software, you buy the domains, stuff like that. And then the next step is to write a lot of scripts to test. Since you will be sending thousands of emails every single day, you can split test a lot of things with substantial data, okay? Because you send so much that you can actually test multiple things at once without hurting anything, okay? And a good email script has the following components, okay? You have hey name, so just their first name. Then you have optional irrelevant question to your offer, okay? Then you have your offer statement, so just we do X for Y industry to generate quantified result. Then you have social proof, so we've helped X person just like you get the outcome. And then you have a CTA at the end, which is just a simple low commitment question. All right. A few rules for you to not land in spam. Don't include links or images. I know people like fancy signatures or stuff like that. Just leave it out. It doesn't really matter. It will just land you in spam. Don't try to go on this whole thing of AI personalization, all right, in the first sentence saying like, oh, I saw your LinkedIn post about X and I found it really cool. We all know that's bullshit. No one really thinks it's genuine because it's not. So just don't. This is so simple, but it gave us the best response rates from anything. We've tried all of this. So keep it short and concise. Less is more, right? Simple language, stuff like that. No signature. You don't need a business name. You don't need anything after the CTA except maybe your name. All right. Keep it simple. One of our best performing emails were 2 sentences long. We didn't include even the hey name or the question. We just said, we do this and we've done this. Do you want this too? That's it. All right. That's how simple it can be. You just need to send a bunch of emails to test all of the stuff for your specific market. Okay. And like I said, you can use software like Instantly, Smart Lead, Email Bison to set all of this up. It's pretty straightforward. It can get complicated at scale. So if you don't want to do this yourself, we do this for clients as well. So we currently have an offer where we run a full outbound campaign for you for free. So we contact 5,000 people of your market for completely free to see if your offer even works for outbound. And if it does, if we get positive replies and meetings, then you can become our client after that, where you only pay us per showed call. So even after that, it's completely risk-free and performance-based. If that sounds somewhat interesting to you, just click the first link in the description, book a call with us to apply. You'll know within 10 to 15 minutes if this makes sense. And if it does, as I said, it's completely free. We get started, run this whole thing for you. So just send a lot of emails and book the people. Yeah, it's free. Just try it out. Book a call and we'll see if this makes sense. All right. And so the next step for this is to set up a simple automation that just immediately notifies your team the second someone responds positively. So if you have any of these softwares, you can set up a make automation or ask AI how to do this. It's pretty simple these days. That you just get a Slack notification or something. Hey, we got a new positive response. Here's the number, and then someone just calls them immediately. All right. Those leads become the absolute priority because if you call them within 5 minutes, like I said in the start, that's part of our winning outbound system. You need to call them within 5 minutes, no longer, because your conversion rates go up by over 300% if you call within 5 minutes. The speed to lead is the most important part about this entire system. If you wait too long, they're dead. The leads are just cold. Prioritize this. If you need to hire someone full-time to just call 3 people a day, but do it within 60 seconds, that will be worth it. You can 3x your business like that. All right, and the last thing I want to cover is forecasting accuracy. Like I said, 99.9%, there's a chance that your problem is just not having enough leads. So fix that first. And then this is just a small bonus. What a lot of companies get wrong, right? They think they need a bunch of forecasting stages and other indicators and stuff like that because they optimize for the system and not actually for the rep and the sales process that influence the forecast themselves. All right. And so the first step is to have proper qualification criteria, because if you have a bunch of junk leads that go into your pipeline, then your forecast obviously will be shit. All right. So we don't want this. And your qualification criteria should be adjusted to the top 20% of your market. That's your perfect ICP that spends the most, stays the longest, and complains the least. All right. So your market is distributed like this. You have the highest priority, highest profit leads, the top 20%, right? You just look at all your customers, you filter them by who spent the most, saved the longest, complained the least, take the top 20%, and that's now your new ICP, all right? And you write down all the similarities that they share in between each other, okay? Then you have the middle 30%, right? So that's your second ICP. You can still sell to them, but those are your only other priority. They're still profitable, and this is only needed if your TAM, like if your top 20% is too small for you to achieve the goals that you have with the company, then you might need to sell to these people too. Who you don't need to sell to, at least with an active salesperson touching this lead, is the bottom 50%, all right? They don't bring a lot of money, they complain a lot, they don't stay long. So you can sell to them if you have like a checkout page and it's all automated. Self-checkout works, okay? But don't involve a salesperson in this. As a general rule, anything under $5,000 in annual revenue is like not worth it for a salesperson to work on. It should be even higher, but that's like the lowest benchmark, okay? So you filter for your top 20%, and then you can cut the bottom 50% of your market completely. You adjust the messaging to address only the best customers, right? Top 20%. And as a result, if you do this, you get more profit and an increase in revenue, both at the same time. Everything gets easier. Your salespeople only talk to people who are pleasant to work with, okay? Everything just gets better. If you do this, you'll have only qualified leads because, you only get people like this and maybe like this. You cut all of these that are volatile, that are causing your forecast to be inaccurate. This is a goal, okay? Like I said, why do we do this? Because the lower part of your market is volatile, okay? They complain more and they cost more and they bring you less revenue. So just don't work with them. Because if you have a lot of these people in your pipeline, as a result, you'll have inconsistent forecasts. They're impossible to predict, so just avoid them. And there are more things through forecasting itself that have less to do with inconsistent sales pipeline and just inconsistent forecasting, right? Like pipeline stages, forecasting stages, CRM setups, reporting, software you can use, many more things. I will cover this in future videos. So if you want that, just subscribe so you don't miss it, and like the video so I know you want to see it. If you have any questions about this, feel free to comment. I read every single one and answer if I can. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. And again, if you want more leads for your company, then just click the first link, apply. Let's see what we can make happen. All right, see you then.